All right, guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. All right, guys, so we had a killer of a card this past Saturday. UFC 259 in the books. Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. That is officially done. All right, what a great main event that we had. We had 3 title fights in this past Saturday with Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. We also had Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan. Phenomenal card. Let's get to this. All right, let's get to the main event. So, in the main event, Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. All right, Israel Adesanya, the fighter that was being marketed the most. All right, because he had the potential of becoming a champ. Right, moving up from middleweight up to light heavyweight, trying to become the 5th fighter to ever get status of champ status, holding 2 title belts at 2 different weight divisions. Right. Goes into the Apex Center to fight Jan Blachowicz. Now, Jan Blachowicz, he is making his first title defense. He is facing a champion in his first title defense. How about that? And a lot of people, Vegas and the odds bettors had Israel Adesanya winning this fight, but can't really, with Israel Adesanya, going a little bit too ahead of himself, saying, hey, I'm not going to bulk up. I'm going to prove that, muscles don't always win fights. Speed and precision does. That he's going to be a double champ. He's going to move up to heavyweight after that. Face John Jones. Wants to fight John Jones in front of a sellout crowd. Wanted to do it for International Fight Week, but because due to the fact of COVID-19, maybe in December, if anything like that, Israel Adesanya did not end up coming out as the victor in that fight. It was Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz successfully defended his title. All right. Judges had scored it 49-46, and then 2 other judges had it 49-45. And I'm like, wow, they gave a 10-8 round in the 5th round. Like, I understand that in rounds 4 and 5, Jan Blachowicz ended up getting, he ended up dominating, all right, Adesanya on the floor with his takedowns, right? Once he was on the floor, Adesanya had no answer whatsoever on how to get back up. Clearly, size was a big factor. Clearly, the weight of Jan Blachowicz smothering on Adesanya's frame, all right? There was no answer for that. And I don't think in the 5th round deserved a 10-8. I can't really complain with that. Overall, who cares? The right person ended up winning the fight. Jan Blachowicz defended his title, all right? In the first couple rounds, in the first 3 rounds, it was usually tit for tat. It was more of a technical fight. It was Adesanya, throwing a jab, throwing a kick, a low calf kick. Then you had Jan Blachowicz, biting on the feints. In my opinion, it seemed like the commentary was a little bit biased on Adesanya, but overall, Jan Blachowicz ends up winning. Now, what's next, right? What's next for both these fighters? Well, Jan Blachowicz had said it out there that Glover Teixeira is next, all right? He was supposed to fight me, but the UFC came with me with this opportunity fighting Israel Adesanya, all right? This guy is one of the biggest stars in the UFC. How is he supposed to say no to that, right? He's in no position whatsoever to say no. Now that he ends up beating Adesanya, he gave him his only defeat in the UFC, right? His only defeat in mixed martial arts. Now, Jan Blachowicz comes out with a bigger name, right? Obviously, he's gonna have more fans, right? Fans are gonna follow him, whether it's the Adesanya haters, right? Whether it's people from Poland or whatnot, or people that have been following him from the very beginning when he started off in the UFC. There's gonna be more of a following for Jan Blachowicz, so that's a big win over there. As for Adesanya, this is not the end of the road, all right? Did his stock lessen? Yes, it did, but not dramatically. I think that he's going to go back down to middleweight. He's going to have to defend his title. I think after April 17th card, after the Darren Till, Marvin Vettori card, by then you would already have Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. That would have been done. The March 20th fight card with Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. That would have already been done. So after those 3 major middleweight fights gets done and out of the window, by then we should have a better understanding on who Israel Adesanya is going to be able to fight. Most likely, Adesanya fights, early summer, I would say like July, all right? Maybe he fights in August. He says he wants to fight 3 or 4 times a year. I see him fighting on International Fight Week, all right? If they don't have anything set up for John Jones. I mean, can you imagine? Nonetheless, with the John Jones stuff, I'll get that into a second. Can you imagine Israel Adesanya fighting on the same card, potentially with John Jones fighting the winner of Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou? Now, I don't know any of this type of stuff. I'm just speculating right now. I'm just throwing out scenarios. That would be crazy right there, right? But anyways, as for Adesanya fighting John Jones, that fight is done and buried with. That's not going to happen. No way, no how. The UFC screwed this up. They should have had John Jones fight Israel Adesanya at light heavyweight, all right? Didn't need to be for a belt or any of that type of matter, all right? But they put Jan Blachowicz in there. Great for Jan Blachowicz. I mean, this guy gets tons of exposure because Adesanya draws, all right? He's a magnet. He could draw casual fans of watching his fights. And now wherever Jan Blachowicz goes, he's going to have a big following, right? Not saying big following like Israel Adesanya, but he definitely had gained, tons of fans by beating Israel Adesanya. And as for Jan Blachowicz, like I said, fighting Glover Teixeira. We also had a light heavyweight bout in the main card with Alexander Rakic versus Thiago Santos, but I'll get to that in just a second. Moving on to the co-main event, all right? We had Amanda Nunes, the Lioness, Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson, right? New Zealand's own Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson's a true 145er. Clearly, she cannot make 135 whatsoever. She has a hard time making 145. This Amazon of a lady standing above 6 feet, right? Fighting Amanda Nunes. You seen the height discrepancy right there, all right? It just didn't matter for Amanda. Amanda knew how to get through that. She had a training partner, did not reveal the name. She had a training partner with that size, that frame, with that similar style. She was able to time her shots. After that first punch that Amanda Nunes ended up cracking Megan Anderson, the fight was pretty much over. Megan Anderson got scared. She got buckled. She was a deer in headlights. And after that, I want to say about like the third or fourth punch, Megan Anderson was already on the floor, and then Amanda applied her jiu-jitsu, put her in a triangle chokehold, converted that into an armbar. Are you kidding me right now? An armbar? And thank God for Megan Anderson, because you know what? She ended up tapping out, and that was the right decision for her, because if not, Amanda would have broken her arm. All right, broken her arm, and it would have been done for. But, so what's next for Amanda Nunes? Amanda Nunes had already cleaned out the 145 division. I mean, there is no real rankings out there. So Megan Anderson, she fought her final fight out of her contract. I do expect the UFC to re-sign her. I know there is one more bout in the featherweight division with Felicia Spencer fighting Wolf later in May. So it doesn't seem like the featherweight division is going to be a dead deal. Do they bring in Kayla Harrison in from the PFL? I think her contract is officially over. I know that she's teammates with Amanda Nunes at American Top Team in Coconut Creek, Florida. So do these two have the potential of fighting each other? I know Amanda has said business is business, that she wouldn't mind it whatsoever. But I would like to see that. Kayla Harrison was an Olympic judo wrestler. She was an Olympic judist. All right, and she also fought for the PFL. She's also a big girl. She has a hard time cutting down to 145. She could cut down to 155 easily. 145 is a different story. Would love to see her fight in the UFC. Have her fight against Amanda. They both know each other. Styles make fights. I think that's a great style right there. I think it could really bring out the best out of Amanda. And clearly Amanda is one of the, if not the greatest female fighter of all time. All right. Second to that is Valentina Shevchenko. Do they make a fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Amanda Nunes? I mean, at 135, Valentina did fight Nunes twice, right? The second fight was closer than the first one. It was controversial. Some people gave it to Valentina, others gave it to Amanda. Do they run it back? I think that's the best fight. I think Amanda had very difficult moments in that fight against Valentina. But according to Dana White, it does seem like the Amanda Nunes is going to fight Juliana Pena. Since Holly Holm was scratched out of that fight between Juliana Pena for May. So this is kind of a little window in May. You have the flyweight division with Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno in June. That title is going to be held in June. As for April, you have Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt against Jessica Andrade, and you also have Weili Zhang versus Rose Namajunas. So you have those ladies fighting. You don't have anything from me. Have a hard time seeing the UFC trying to have Amanda Nunes main event against Juliana Pena. No offense to Juliana Pena, but the Venezuelan Vixen doesn't really have that much of a big name out there to put it out there in a main event. I know they had last year back in June. It was Nunes versus Felicia Spencer, but that was different. Now I could see the UFC having Amanda in the co-main event, and then maybe the UFC goes against their word and have Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje for the interim title belt, since that's the direction where the UFC wants to go. I'm just throwing out speculations out there, but for right now, it just seems like Amanda Nunes is going to be fighting Juliana Pena and defending her 135 belt. Would have thought it would have been during the randomly, but it is what it is. Amanda is most likely going to get past Juliana Pena. Moving on to the third title fight, the first title fight of the card. Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan. Petr Yan, the champion. Aljamain, the number one contender. Both these two guys have some type of animosity against one another. Petr Yan making his first title defense, and Aljamain trying to become the third champion out of Ray Longo's camp. He would be the third champion to come out of Long Island. Matt Serra be number 1, Chris Weidman be number 2, and Aljamain Sterling being number 3. Well, Aljamain Sterling ended up walking out of the Apex Center with the belt, but he ends up winning the fight by disqualification due to the fact that Petr Yan threw an illegal knee. An illegal knee on a grounded fighter. Aljamain Sterling had both knees on the floor, and he was grounded. Petr Yan held him by his hands and then threw a knee right to the noggin right there. Knocked him down, had him concussed. He looked like he had no idea where he was at. He was looking at stars. I don't know what he was doing. His eyes were all over the place. He was like this. He looked like Adam Gase right there when he had his presser being introduced by the New York Jets. All right. I'm sorry, didn't mean to bring football into the mix. This is MMA. But Aljamain Sterling was concussed, had no reason of continuing the fight whatsoever. And by Mark Smith, the referee, he ends up awarding the match to Aljamain Sterling due to an illegal knee to the head via disqualification. Aljamain Sterling was given the belt. Should the UFC have this rule implemented? I have very strong feelings about this. I feel like they should get rid of this rule. I think that a fighter should not be awarded a belt due to a disqualification. I know this is pro wrestling that I'm about to talk about right now, but in the WWE, and I know this is scripted, but in the WWE, they don't award titles to people that win by disqualification. The person that got disqualified gets the loss, and the person that won via disqualification, they get the win, but they don't get the belt. I think that's how it should be with the UFC. I don't see how you give the belt to Aljamain Sterling, even though he got hit with an illegal knee that was intentional. It was clearly intentional whatsoever. Don't see how the UFC should give Aljamain Sterling the belt. Now you're giving this guy pay-per-view points now because he's a champion. He's gonna make his base salary is gonna be significantly higher than Petr Yan, and the only good thing that comes from this is that Dana White has clearly had said it in the press conference, in the post-fight press conference, that these two will run it back. All right, so the people that should be very upset right now is Petr Yan and also TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen. Reason why I say TJ Dillashaw and Corey Sandhagen should be upset because many people were speculating that TJ Dillashaw was going to fight the winner of Aljamain versus Petr Yan. Well, clearly that is out of the window right there, because now it seems like both those fighters, Dillashaw and Sandhagen, are going to be fighting each other for the number one contendership. So with that being said, well, what's next? What's next after that? You also have Cody Garbrandt versus Jose Aldo. Don't see that being a number one contendership fight. But now it's going to be Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan in the rematch whenever Aljamain Sterling is cleared to fight. So that's what happened. Huge controversy. I know a lot of fighters were saying that this guy deserves an Oscar. This guy was acting. That why would somebody being concussed, want to be in an interview with Joe Rogan after the fight? That really scratched my head over there too. I don't understand why Aljamain wanted to be interviewed by Joe Rogan after the fight. I think he should have just went straight to the hospital. If he would have went straight to the hospital and not done that interview, I personally do feel like we wouldn't be questioning him so much if he was acting. Me personally, I don't think he was acting. I think he was hurt. But that's a huge red flag over there. Moving on next, with the second fight on the main card, Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. Drew Dober, huge stud, trains in Denver, Colorado, got hands, has power, has pop, but was facing the protege of Khabib Nurmagomedov in the name of Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev dominated. He showed his wrestling, his sambo wrestling, inside trips, outside trips, whatever you name it. Single leg takedowns, double leg takedowns, dominated in half guard, full guard, and showed why this guy is the real deal at 155. Wins the fight via triangle chokehold, all right, forces Drew Dober to tap out and calls out Tony Ferguson. So what's next? Should Tony take this fight? If I'm Tony Ferguson, I'm not taking this fight whatsoever. I think, first of all, Islam Makhachev is too high up, too low in the ranking order, right? I think he was ranked like number 14 in the lightweight division. I think Tony is ranked number 6. I think the UFC should just have RDA versus Islam Makhachev fight each other because that was a scheduled fight for them to have against one another. And Tony, I think he should just sit out as long as possible, recover, because he had a real bad beating against Justin Gaethje a little over a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And I think that he still hasn't fully recovered. He took the fight too early against Charles Oliveira and got dominated. Doesn't need to be dominated again by for a third fight in a row. And then going on to the first fight of the main card, Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. I mean, this was supposed to be a huge fight for the light heavyweight division due to the fact that the light heavyweight title was being defended, but it didn't live up to the hype. I thought this was going to be the dark horse fight on the card. I thought this was going to be fireworks, but it simply just feels like Thiago Santos is on the decline. It's on the decline, and it's showing signs that those knee surgeries are impacting him. Alexander Rakic definitely took care of business. Won the fight. Now I feel like he should fight the winner of Yuri Prochazka versus Dominic Reyes. As for Thiago Santos, I think he needs to fight somebody lower in the ranking order, just so he can get a win, so he could snap out of this 3-fight win streak. And you also had Dominic Cruz versus Casey Kenny. Cruz got his first victory since 2016. And that's that, guys. I mean, look, that covers everything for UFC 259. What's the goal? Please hit that like and subscribe button, and thank you for tuning in to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace, guys.